Right, we're just doing this again, because this is what happens now. Suppose some of these can be considered interesting ones, just given things I've said in the past and the things they might seem to imply, but in fact do not, if careful attention was paid. Last night I was up till very late. Last night was weird. Interesting dreams. I'll just cover them even though I didn't think I was going to, but I'm going to do it now. Interesting dream where quite relationship driven. It had an interaction with the girl I always loved. Well, not always, but girl I once loved. The only girl I consider myself to have loved the most. Quite sexually driven as well. And then I also, in the same evening, had an encounter with one of the women I had sex with. And it was certainly interesting. I was up till very late because I was reading 1984, but also read Sam Harris's what do you call it? Not revelation, but leaking? I don't know, of his conversation his email correspondence with Ezra Klein on Fox.com, editor-in-chief. And then I looked. The feeling I got when I read it was Ezra did kind of come off as quite genial, and even though he was, if you're right, well, Sam made the point clear. If you were to carefully read it, then you would. But it's hard to assume that everyone's going to do that. So just by coming off as genial, it seemed like Sam was being aggressive, but the subtext of everything that was said gave context to his aggression. Well, not really aggression, but kind of trying to, Anyway, I felt kind of sorry for Sam because he was being wronged, and he's, I don't know. It was just like the sensation I got was when you're on the phone to someone who works in some kind of customer assistance role on the phone, and Sam was the customer, and they were thinking, and they were just being polite, but all the while not being helpful, and in fact being rather deceitful. Anyway, I can't remember what the actual thing was I had there. Right, I'll just read them now. The cure for nihilism is ethical egoism. Now, actually, maybe I should have said self-interest theory, and even maybe then I shouldn't, because I don't really know what either of those things are. I just know what my own definition. They're just the words. So ethical egoism, which I've hardly looked into at all, but seems like maybe it's the more, at first glance, it seems like it's maybe the more accurate or more mainstream definition of self-interest theory, which is what it was called in the. I don't actually have a word for my thing because I think they still don't capture it. They all seem to just ignore time. They're basically just talking about hedonism, pretty much, kind of. And I think they're all interlinked and all correct. If you were to add the idea of maximising, once you get the idea of maximising the area under the curve of eudaimonia and time, then that's pretty much the main idea. But maybe you have to have an idea of how area under curves work, and I don't know, maybe some people don't. But yeah, I think nihilism, and I think nihilism is both correct. I think they're all correct, but they're all just parts of the big story. So I've talked about before the massive Venn diagram that would have the one area in the middle that would be where it's all at. Anyway. Oh yes, I this was a while back now, but I came across that Yaron Brook person, probably because of Jordan Peterson and him being considered on the right a bit, and this is why I hate the right and left thing. Anyway, he's doing some talks at Exeter, I think, or something like that, and he's very pro-capitalist. And I could be wrong about this distillation of what he's saying, but the kind of main gist of what I felt he was saying. I didn't hate it, I didn't know everything he was saying was wrong or by any means. But I think the kind of question he poses by everything he says is, why shouldn't people who do the work who do the work to make the valuable things get more money? And then I think that question does have an answer, and the answer is they don't need it. Literally need, not in a trivial sense, but for the most basic requirements for survival. And other people do, obviously. And I don't think the way to implement the solution to this answer to this question is to enforce laws or anything like that. Although obviously I guess kind of taxes are similar to that in a way. But I think it's, I've mentioned this before as well, a kind of ideological societal shift. And something like effective altruism is probably the best option we have at the moment for that. So yeah, that's the answer to why shouldn't be more who do the work get them all the money, or not all. He didn't say all that. He's kind of just implying why should they have to give it away? Why shouldn't they be entitled to it anyway? Here we go. I'm just saying money should probably go to those who need it. Anyway. And then someone might retort, well, surely it should go to those who deserve it. And I'd say need and deserve are fairly synonymous-ish. Right. My aspiration for no one to subscribe to any identity would likely be taken as some to adopt some sort of non-identityist label or non-labelist's identity. But this too would fall prey to the same susceptibilities. And I was wondering whether Anonymous might have been a good example of this. You know, the hacker group Anonymous, whether at any point they actually deem themselves to be anonymous, and obviously now they've taken on this whole identity of being anonymous, which is kind of a paradox, but not really. Is that irony? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And actually I decided to do some goals. I decided to try and solidify some. So the thing that's in the kind of thing, the word that I'm looking for is a combination of block and inhibit. Anyway, the thing that was inhibiting me from getting, not solidifying, not substantiating. Something like, oh god, these goals was that I just don't have any. I want one main overarching goal, right? That I can then I can toil over which goals, which mini goals are the best to achieve that, and which medium goals are the best to work my way towards it. But I just can't think of one. I guess it should be to maximise the well-being of, just try to maximise the area under the curve of view, mainly for myself, but also through the by doing it for other people, maximise my own by doing it for other people. Anyway, I don't really know how to do that. Anyway, I'm just going to read this now. So short-term goals, which is today or tomorrow. Anyway, read a chapter of 1984, which I actually already did this morning. So that one's, I guess I can check off, but I want to kind of do it again. Check off. Russia. Watch Beauty and the Beast. I forgot about that one. Don't know why. It shouldn't really seem like a goal, but I feel like I can just cheat the system by doing things. Actually, that was a thought that came to me. I think the fact that I have difficulty doing the goals, because Jordan Peterson has actually been saying this in the videos I've been watching recently, but I actually said it ages ago, is that the goal, the thing for the reward for achieving a goal, right, can come from any goal really. I guess if you kind of manage to value it, I don't know. I guess you can't. Look, whatever. Try and cheat the system, I guess, or you could try and cheat the system by just whatever you find. If you really can't come up with anything whatsoever, which I guess I was kind of in, or except I was more just kind of not willing to do it. But some people who can't go outside or whatever. Whatever you did today, write that down as a goal and just do it again tomorrow, and then maybe see if you get see if you get the reward. So even if it's just like eat breakfast, right? I guess unless you're severely anorexic or whatever, there's got to be something. Breathe, right? Put breathe on there as a goal. And if you do that tomorrow, then you can check it off and maybe it'll give you some kind of a reward. I don't know. Anyway, watch Beauty and the Beast, do the dishwasher, walk Twiggy, watch an episode of some comedy series. I was going to say 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown. I think that's not technically a comedy series, I guess. Anyway. But I think they're not, I haven't released any new ones, so I can't do that anyway. Right. Write a short, open brackets, very short, close brackets, story. That's going to be an interesting one. See if I get around to doing that one. And then long-term goals. This is going to be funny because they're not really goals at all. Read Faust by Goethe, and write some sort of book. So they're my 2 long-term goals, which I don't really care about, but I guess hopefully I can try and increase my eudaimonia by tricking myself into doing them. Everyone probably thinks they're the wisest person on earth. So I think it's much easier to acknowledge that you're not the smartest person on earth, because you kind of come into contact with evidence that you aren't all the time, just watching The Chase and then not being able to get the answers, and that other people sometimes do. I think that's one. But it's hard to not think you're the wisest person in the world, because I think wisdom is kind of just the it's the attribute of having learnt from all your encounters, right? And it would be almost impossible for you to think that you're still harbouring some erroneous beliefs and suppositions as a result of the encounters you've faced through life, right? Because if you thought they were erroneous, if you thought they were false, you wouldn't really be able to hold them. I guess is what kind of doublethink is all about in 1984. Anyway, so yeah, I think everyone kind of thinks they're super wise. I think maybe it's possible to think other people are wiser than you, but it's perhaps impossible to think that anyone could be wiser than you if they had only had the exact experience that you've had. You're as wise. I think everyone thinks that's probably more accurate. I think everyone thinks they're as wise as they could possibly be, and I guess that's true deterministically. But I don't know. I don't really know if I don't care about it enough. Right. Back on Jordan Peterson's idea of God, or at least what I'm saying he is his idea of God. I think the most sympathetic interpretation of what he is deeming to be God is the totality of the interplay between all matter and non-matter that gives rise to each preceding moment. So, a big part of that would be genes, but would also include the less tangible idea of natural selection, but would also include things like physics, the rest of biology, psychology, chemistry, sociology, and so on. All of everything that could possibly be incorporated into determinism. And I'm talking about real determinism that would even include, I don't know how I feel about quantum mechanics and supposedly being a counter to determinism, because I think you could include it, right? Anyway, and perhaps this is in keeping with at least one of the classical descriptions of God, omnipresent, and would also allow, I think it would then, never mind. And would also allow people to claim that through a kind of pseudo-circular logic, God is found in each individual, in the genes obviously, but also seeing as the definition is so broad as to contain all matter. I actually think a weak case, but a case nonetheless, could be made for some other attributes. Omnipotence, if the definition contains all things and all possible things, then it must include all power. Omniscience, again, if the definition incorporates all that is and could ever be, it must too contain all possible knowledge. But I don't think a credible case could be made for omnibenevolence. The view one would have of such an all-encompassing definition, if they were to personify it, which is a step which can only really serve to discredit the definition in the first place, would be one of an impartial experimenter trying out different combinations of variables in different combinations of environments. As I said, impartial, with neither a love nor hatred of success or failure, but a simple application of logical sequentiality. So yeah, I think it's nice to have a word. I think determinism works just as well, really. I think maybe there is a word and I just don't know it, but I think to try and shoehorn it all into God is an impossible task, and I think you're just going to end up allowing people who have got another definition of God to believe they have credibility in what their definition of God is. Some actual being, some actual entity that exists alongside the universe, who feels free, who has the ability to intervene at any point in any way it deems possible, or any way it wants to, and also wants to would obviously imply that it has consciousness. Right, I'm just going to leave it there. Okay, great one, really great. Okay, I'm going to go complete some of my goals, get the rewards. Oh yeah, get some nice juicy golden rewards.